Good morning, or good morning. I should say good evening. It's about 11:37 here on a Monday night. So yeah, I saw a really fantastic, amazing movie. I went to a buddy's house tonight, and I was pretty jazzed about it. I want to talk about this film. It had been years since shit. It's been years since I've seen it, and so I was so pumped after I saw it, and then I was like, well, I'll wait till Tuesday and I'll do the video. But there's like another video that I want to get to, which I tried doing today, which is more involved, and I kind of want to do it tomorrow because it took up a lot of time. So I figured, well, I want to talk about this movie now, and then I'll get into and then tomorrow hopefully I'll have better luck making this video. But anyway, before I talk about the actual movie, so I was getting all ready to do a video for Film Fanatic where I was going to do a tour of my collection. I finally got everything situated around Christmas time. I got some new shelving that I needed. I ran out of. It's been around Christmas time till about the last month or so. I was kind of having to take a little bit of a break from buying as many movies that I was because just financial things and with the holidays and stuff. And so but I still buy movies, and I splurged a little bit a few weeks ago. I went up and I got a bunch of movies, and it had been quite a while since I got new Blu-rays, and it was just amazing. And I've been posting those videos, and there's still a handful of movies to go. That's gonna still come your way here on the Film Fanatic channel. But around Christmas time from Santa Claus, it was probably about 2 or 3 months ago. I like officially ran out of space for my movie collection. So my room and my where my movies were was becoming a big mess. And so I luckily got a some shelving from Santa Claus on Christmas, which was pretty sweet. And then I got it set up, and I was slowly last month or two kind of slowly picking away at getting shit together and putting stuff away. And then last week, or just really a few days ago, I just finished it. I knocked it out, and I did it in one night, and I was able to fix it all up. So I was super excited about finally getting it done. Everything's totally organized when it comes to my movies. Like, everything is set up to where I have genre. It's kind of genre specific for the most part. I have all my horror exploitation movies. I have them in one particular area or two areas, and then I have another section of just my quote unquote normal movies. And my passion is the exploitation, and so I've been buying, and I love all kinds of movies, of course, and I still will buy them, but my priority is to get my exploitation collection as good as it can get. And that's kind of where my focus mainly goes. So I obviously have, but because that's, I've always had those kinds of movies in my collection, but it wasn't until the last 4 to 5 years that I was really proactively seeking out as many as many exploitation movies as I could find. So I separated them and got it all set up. So today I was excited to finally do a show because I had been talking about doing it and I've been wanting to do it for a while. Do a show over where I'm going to just do a little mini tour or tour of my movie collection. I keep all my movies in my room, so I have the racks all set up, and so everything is set up now so I can see everything, and it's easy access. So I was excited this morning to do the show, and I knew it was probably going to be a little bit of a longer show, but I ended up doing the video this morning, and it was going. I felt like it was going pretty good, and then I was trying to figure out, the logistics of trying to get decent angles, with the camera, because I'm gonna, record it for the show. So I was trying to figure out the logistics of getting, decent camera angles, not having it become too jittery, and also the mic placement, because this microphone that I use is really good, but it's really sensitive and it can distort easily. So, and I knew I had to kind of move the microphone around and all those kinds of things. So I was trying to figure that out. And then I went, shot the video, and then after I got done, it was like about 35 minutes. Shot the video, and then I sat and watched it, and I was like, okay, it's pretty good. I think I'm gonna post it. And then it got to the midway part, and I realized the microphone was kind of getting all fucked up, and it was all distorted because I was putting the microphone too close, and I kept moving it. So the sound was all messed up. So I was like, shit, okay, I have to redo it. So I had to scrap the video, and then I was going to set up to do it again, try it again. And so I went ahead, set it up. It took a little more time to set things up and whatnot. And I recorded the video, and it felt like it went pretty good, and it was pretty comfortable. And then went ahead and did it. And I, started recording things as I was going, and went through the whole show, went through the whole tour, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I went back after that, and it was about 35 minutes of that. Then I went back to watch it, check it out, and realized I never hit record. So, yeah, good times. So I scrapped that for today, and then I did a different video which I uploaded today called about Mayhem, their live album that is just an amazing record. So I decided to talk about that in place of this other clusterfuck. So tomorrow my goal is to do this video and to knock that out, and I'm excited to get that done because I've been wanting to do it for a very long time, so we'll see how it goes. So in the meantime, I'm doing this video. So the movie I saw tonight was by one of the greatest directors of all time, the one and only David Cronenberg. He's one of my favorite directors. One of the greatest directors in the horror genre. Kind of, even though David Cronenberg doesn't really... I've seen lots of interviews with him over the years, and I love him to death. I love all of his movies. His whole thing, though, is like when people always refer to him as being kind of the king of body horror, he seems to really kind of like push that label away. But he seems to not really like being tied to that label, I guess. But I think for me, he's one of the best horror filmmakers, and he does such an amazing job with blending science fiction and horror and body horror, because I feel like his use of practical effects, especially in the 70s and 80s, and even now, are just so of such a high caliber. So I went over to a buddy's house the other night, or actually tonight, and we watched Videodrome with James Woods, and I have not seen that movie in a million years. And it's one of the best Cronenberg films of all time. Um, it's one of his best, but I had not seen it in years, and so my buddy had it on 4K. So it was like a double bonus because I had not seen it in years, and I had never seen it on 4K. And my buddy's got a pretty sweet giant screen TV. It's much bigger than mine. And we watched it tonight, and I was blown away. I This movie is such a masterpiece. It was like I felt like watching it in 4K. In 4K, a lot of the times I'm kind of on the fence about. Like, I know it's really good. I understand the allure. I have seen some 4K films, and the transfers are amazing. And Videodrome came out in 1983. My first feeling of watching Videodrome was like, wow, this feels like it came out in 2025. Like it was insane. And so like with 4K, it's like I don't have a 4K player. I don't use 4K, but I've seen a few 4K movies, and it is pretty amazing. But I've also heard from a lot of people who collect movies that, it's in a lot of ways it's not necessarily any different in regards to certain films. So, I've been on the fence about taking that plunge. It probably will happen, but my biggest reservation, or I should say one of my biggest reservations of not fully diving into 4K is just because I will have to buy, another copy of the same movie that I already have multiple copies of. One of the excuses that I use or examples that I've used is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. I have like 5 or 6 copies of that. I don't have it on 4K, but I have like 5 or 6 copies of it. I have it on VHS. I have it on like a really generic standard DVD. I have an anniversary collector's edition of it on DVD. I have a steelbook version of it on DVD. And then I have like another kind of more standard Blu-ray version of it. And then I have another higher kind of anniversary special. So it's, I have multiple copies of this movie. I have it, and I think I said I have it on VHS too. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy this movie again, and now I'm going to have 6 copies of it. So it's kind of crazy. But I will say, watching Videodrome, it's a masterpiece. It's, an example. It's such an example of the genius of Cronenberg. I mean, not only the practical effects are just amazing and astounding. True body horror, one of the most influential directors, one of the most important directors in the world. He came out of the 70s and 80s, and I consider a lot of his early films to be, I put his films in my kind of exploitation, low budget horror films area in my collection. So he's very much, I feel like, a part of that scene, especially, I mean, he's a Canadian director, and, in the 70s and 80s, there was an amazing period in Canada for horror and exploitation movies. A huge fan of, The Siege, and, I got The Shivers by David Cronenberg, which came out in like 79 or 78. Amazing movie. I believe that was his first film. The Siege, My Bloody Valentine. I mean, the list. There were so many fantastic Canadian films that came out. Even Bob Clark, who is not a Canadian, but he shot most of his films in Canada. I kind of consider some of his films to be of the Canadian kind of brand of exploitation. So there's so many great Canadian films, but David Cronenberg is, again, the other thing that I love about his work so much is it's like the perfect kind of, he reaches this perfect balance or perfect symmetry of science fiction, which I love to death. I'm a huge science fiction fan, but also combining that with full on horror. And his films are so original. They're just bonkers crazy. Great characters. There's never a level of like this kind of formulaic telling of a story that it's always odd, it's always unique, it's always different, and it's always outside the box. Not only the way he shoots his films, and he's used the same crew for like virtually his entire career, which is astounding. I mean, you're talking 70s, 80s, 90s, right up into 2025. I saw recently that David Cronenberg has another new movie coming out this year, which is amazing. His last film, I can't remember the name of it. Viggo Mortensen was in it, and it was actually a really good movie. I think I did a show on it. So, Scanners is another one of my favorites. Shivers, The Fly. I mean, he's one of those directors I feel like there isn't a movie that he's done that I don't like. History of Violence, which is one of his later films. Yeah, I mean, he's a master. And I will say Videodrome is one of his best movies, without a doubt. James Woods, I forgot how great of an actor he is or was. He's still alive, but he's pretty much been retired from making films for quite a few years, as far as I gather. Again, like I said before, watching Videodrome, it was like seeing it for the first time. You know, if all 4Ks are this good, shit. It was impeccable. Like, I mean, it felt so current. It felt so contemporary watching this film. I wish more Well, I shouldn't say that. There's been some really great movies. I don't want to knock newer films because there's been so many great films. But in this case, they don't really make them like they used to. But that being said, Cronenberg's influence, like pretty much the best movie that came out last year. 2024 was a just a kick-ass year for horror films. It really was. So many great horror films. I mean, you had Longlegs, you had In a Violent Nature, you had The Substance. There's so many great films that came out. Oddity, amazing. But I was talking about that with my friend tonight, and he had just watched, my friend Zafar, who he had just watched The Substance. And I'm like, again, that film to me, it was so greatly influenced by Cronenberg, especially the second or the last act of that film, because it's completely insane. And Cronenberg's, you can see his hand, you can see his influence on so many filmmakers. It's just amazing. And his son, Brandon Cronenberg, is an amazing director in his own right. Like, he's completely insane also. He did a film, Infinity Pool, a few years ago, which is just like a masterpiece, if no one's ever seen it. Like, insane. But yeah, so I was really kind of chomping at the bit after I saw Videodrome tonight to do this show. His Cronenberg, I think, is one of the he's a not only a director, he's a visionary, and a lot of I mean, pretty much the premise of Videodrome is about our, like, as a species or as a culture, is where we have this, well, as I'm talking into a computer, but we have this kind of like obsessive nature with media, and we, if we're not really careful, it can run our lives and kind of create this alternate reality that isn't really real around us, and we unfortunately see that in the world. And I remember seeing a few years ago one of Trump's lawyers, I think his name was Cohen, and he was testifying about Trump and his devious ways. And he was quoted, he said that he gave a quote. He was testifying in Congress, and he gave a quote. He was quoting an experience that he had with Trump, where they were in a limousine riding to some kind of rally or something, and Trump supposedly had said to Cohen about, "I'm going to sell the world, or I'm going to sell the United States, the biggest infomercial in the world, and they're going to eat it all up." And that's kind of where we are. And I feel like with how we are as a culture, how we access media, how it runs our lives, for some of us, and there's this obsessive nature to media or to information that a lot of the times isn't really information at all. It's just kind of white noise. But there's this consumerism that has kind of overtaken us, and that's one of the darker aspects of technology. On one hand, you have all these great things, but on the darker side of things, there's always a balance, or there's always pros and cons to anything. But I think with technology, it's a little bit more of a predicament. But Videodrome really deals with that, and I feel like it's a prophetic movie. I think, again, Cronenberg is light years ahead of his time. This film came out in '83, and I feel like he's kind of talking about how we are as a culture now with social media and how we access media and how politicians can create these environments and people can drink the Kool-Aid, all kinds of politicians. So it's very interesting on how it's such a timeless film that way. So yeah, Videodrome. I don't have 4K, but seeing it on 4K was insane. I have not seen Videodrome in probably 15 years, but my God, what a masterpiece. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It's definitely, I mean, there's so many great films to Cronenberg's credit as a director. He's one of my all-time favorites. Videodrome, as I would say, is definitely like, right up there as like one of the top, Shivers, Scanners, and Videodrome, like those movies, like his early films are just like, I mean, I love all of his stuff, but those things that he did in the late 70s and the 80s, like, just amazing. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.